Hi, I'm the Thesterninator. Welcome to the channel. And a few months ago, I started this new adventure. I wanted to create a new Pokemon region that was my own, and thus Kostawes was born. Based on the West Coast, Kostawes, West Coast, I created this region with starters and enemies and evil teams, as well as a bunch of other Pokemon that I came to really love. And then I shelved it. I put it to the side, deciding that I'll get to it someday, but maybe that day wouldn't be today. And then I decided last week that I wanted to maybe potentially start doing that again. So I threw it up on my free Patreon poll that I host every week to see what you guys thought. And it was kind of a shutout. Yes! Yes! You guys really wanted to see Kostawes, wanted to see a return to this world that I created, and I am flattered. So, without much further ado, let's hop right back into the world of Kostawes and jump right into this video. Hi, I'm the Thesterninator, but my friends call me Stern. Welcome to the channel. While you're here, don't forget to drop down below, like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff that makes me and YouTube happy, and let's hop right into the video. Last we spoke, you were caught between your own Mentrattle, freshly caught, and a new Pokemon, Glowlurk, that had emerged from within this abandoned cave. If you recall, you caught this Mentrattle when a new stranger appeared, gave you a special Pokeball, and you were able to capture this strange Pokemon. But now comes the battle. What are you going to do? How are you going to escape? Well, regardless whether you win or lose, your Mentrattle will come out alive. And the strange new friend will grant you yet another gift, after congratulating you on your victory, of course. He'll withdraw your Pokemon and heal them all up, granting you a strange rare candy. You've seen rare candies before, but none quite like this. It shines with a strange hue, which he tells you will allow one of your Pokemon to evolve. You think about it for a moment before being ambushed by a brand new Pokemon in this cave. I'd played with this idea for a while and never truly felt comfortable with it until very recently. I wanted to make a regional phalanx, and the reason for that was I felt that a mine really worked for its play and its understanding, as well as allowed me to introduce some jokes and fun little humor into the character. I decided to give it one extra phalanx since most have 6, but I wanted to give it a 7th as a reference to the 7 dwarves who were diamond miners. So I played up the idea of allowing it to have that big central spot on the front of the first one there, but changed it rather than being a spike to being this big headlamp. And I used the headlamps very much as the main reference and crux of the design. I wanted them to feel like dirty little mine-dwelling characters. If you recall from way back when we first talked about the Kostawes videos, you find yourself in this abandoned mine, and I wanted to give it a little bit more life, give it something that allowed it to feel like there was something bigger going on here. So I gave it a couple Pokemon. We gave it a Stalagmite Pokemon as well as a Glowworm Lantern type Pokemon, but I wanted something that made it feel like while this is abandoned, some Pokemon may not see it that way. Some still make homes there. I think about animals who actually do this. Animals who will find areas abandoned by humanity and reclaim it as their own. Think about those temples that we often see in movies and even actual history that have been abandoned by humans, and yet the local monkeys will take resident in, making it their own. It was a big inspiration in the Jungle Book for King Louie and his whole court of apes. So I wanted to do something similar here. I brought in this type of idea of phalanx and thought I want to keep a lot of the same shapes and ideas. I didn't want it to feel like a convergent line or a different form like that, so I wanted to keep it feeling very much like the original, just moving some pieces around. Swapping out those shields for these big tires, like I said, that big spike for the headlamp at the front of it. The biggest thing was playing up the colors and trying to figure out what I wanted to do there, because the yellow really lends itself already to these hard hat wearing gold miners. But I wanted to give it a little bit more context, a little bit more something that made it feel like its own. So I went with the steel underbody, which I think allowed it to feel more like the whole thing was in shadow, and let me play up some of the shapes that already existed there while introducing some new ideas. I'm really happy with how it turned out, and you'll see in the final render that I actually make a couple changes even after the final design here, just because I found that I was having so much fun playing with this idea, one that I'd been playing with for a long time and finally got the ability to understand what I wanted to do with it. Returning to this idea, we have Kostawes Phalanx. Losing that fighting type, it is now a steel ground type, and I love it. The whole idea of even that mud splashing off of the tires as it just goes to work. Rather than being solely dedicated to fighting and warrior prowess, it's now dedicated fully to ensuring that these mines are cleared of all valuables. After the battle, you return to the question, who to evolve? If you're a trainer like I am who keeps their starter close by, then it's an easy choice, right? So I look at our starters, our water, fire, and grass types, and decided, yeah, for the story that we're going with here, this would be the case. You'd want to evolve your starter. So I started playing with what these starters would look like. Currently, they're in their secondary forms. So I played up that idea, taking them as inspiration and forming that into the final phase here. Here we have Scrappler, and I wanted this to feel very much like it just gets bigger. More emphasis on the muscle and punch. A lot of people have theorized that this is based on the pistol shrimp, especially given that I've talked about how each of the starters is based on a different genre of movie, and this one is based on westerns. So I wanted it to feel like a western. I wanted this character to feel like an old school cowboy and have those big punchy claws that allow for that, while still keeping up that type of punchy claw snappy type of feel. You dig? So I played up that idea a little bit, wanted it to feel like an old western type of character, and turn these punching mitts into actual claws that can form themselves into turret guns. I strongly subscribe to the idea of the water starters all being based on weaponry, so I played up that a lot. I went with the idea of this feeling like a Gatling gun. You know, those old Western style machine guns that they pull out for the big final showdown. Maybe the bad guy is shooting down at the good guy who's just trying to escape through the town while everything's getting blown to smithereens. I decided to focus on that. I also had this idea that the pinkish part of the body, while reminiscent in the first and second forms here, is going to fully take on the shape of a star. So you can see the shapes on the legs and the chest can form themselves into a star, which means that this guy is the sheriff of his town. I even gave him this wraparound on the neck, which in the final design you'll see ends up feeling a little bit more like a bandana. Your very classic, typical Old West style movies. Think The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Think Dirty Harry. Think that whole design. I even wanted to make sure that we kept a scowl on his face because Dirty Harry was such an inspiration for this character and Clint Eastwood movies as a whole. So I desperately love this character. It's actually where the logo for my channel came from. And yeah, not much more I can say about it. I love him. I love the design. The biggest struggle that I had here was incorporating blue because I wanted to go crazy, wanted to make it feel loud and big and give it all these drastically departing colors from the water typing, but I also wanted to stay true to the format that we see with actual water starters. So I played around with the different shades, made it feel a little bit darker to the color scheme, just because I wanted it to feel like it really fit that vagabond or vigilante type of vibe. And I'm hoping that I did. Again, this is one of my favorites of the Pokemon that I've ever designed, thus my channel icon, so I'm hoping that you like him too. And so, meet Kostawes. Kostawes' name comes from crustacean, anguish, and extinguish. It is now a water steel type to really maximize on that machine gun or Gatling gun type of feel. And I know I've already said it a million times. I love this guy, and I didn't think I'd love any of our other starters quite as much, but boy did I prove myself wrong. If you've been on the channel long enough, you know that I am a grass type enjoyer. I love me a good grass starter. There's not a lot of them that I don't like, and whenever I'm in a tight bind and saying I love all of the starters or I don't like any of them, whenever a new game comes out, I always default to grass. That's my C on a 4-part question. So I went in with this one and honestly, kind of didn't know where I wanted to go. I've designed this Pokemon a dozen times, but each time I always felt like it was the weakest of the three. So I went in with some of the new things that I've learned, some of the new education that I've gotten on how to draw Pokemon, and the new style changes that Pokemon has done in recent iterations. So I feel like taking all of that into account, I came up with something that I really enjoy, that definitely battles my water starter that we previously looked at, and might even topple it as being one of my favorites. So I don't know, it's a tough call there. I went in initially wanting something that felt very Charlie Chaplin, like someone striving to be an actor. But I kind of moved past that with this design. Thought of someone who was an old-timey actor who's now past their prime but is still able to hold their own in the circle of society there, and played up that idea. Rather than being a fantastic new actor or a character based on the likes of the big Hollywood elite that we know of now, I'm with someone who is perfectly fine being in the old style of movie. And I kind of like that. I feel like it plays up the idea that I focused on moss as the grass equivalent to this Pokemon. You know, a rolling stone gathers no moss, but this one is happy to. I played up the idea of that, of utilizing moss as something that grows over dead and abandoned things, but utilizing it in a positive light here. And I'm really, really glad that I did. I got to bring in that cape that we see in the previous form of Dramos there, and played it up in a little bit more purpose. Played it as this shawl that kind of covers this character, gives them some elegance, while still keeping that little kerchief of the neck kind of mimicking fur, and playing up the hands into these big gloves. I even brought in Mickey Mouse as a big area of example here. You can kind of see that I'm hoping with the buttons on the pants, the black arms and stomach, and utilizing those to kind of mimic that old-timey Steamboat Willie black and white film type of feel. There's so much going on here, but I also feel like it all has its place. So I'm really proud of this. And while at one point I felt like, well, this is always going to be my weakest of the starters, I started to turn around and say, I think this is one of the stronger designs that I've ever done. Let me know down in the comments. I'm sure you would either way. And so meet Davish. Davish's name comes from a couple different areas of inspiration. One, that O at the beginning for opossum, and then Cavendish, which is a high-end tobacco usually smoked in pipes, as well as Cadaver for the opossum's acting ability. It is a grass fairy type, which I feel fits for that acting prowess that this Pokemon holds so tight to their chest, and I dig them. One of my favorites. If you're a fan of the channel, then you probably know how I feel about fire types. I feel like they're often designed just to look cool and not have any bearing on any other area other than just make it look cool. Make it look cool. Don't make it look friendly, don't make it look magical, don't give it a ton of backstory, just make it look cool. And honestly, when looking at this Pokemon for its reference to action and high-octane racing style movies, that's kind of the best position to be in. Am I saying that I'm wrong in how I feel about fire types? No. But am I saying that fire types can be more than just cool, or even utilize the cool factor that they have in various different ways that still make them work? I mean, technically, yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying. But I went in and wanted to utilize my feelings about fire types in this design. Make it feel action. Make it feel cool. Make it feel big and powerful. I mean, that's kind of something that we want in our Pokemon, right? We want to feel like they're strong. We want to feel like the attachment that we have to them is what makes them so powerful. So I went into this and decided if I'm going to make a fire type, then I'm going to make the fire type of fire types. It's going to hit all the elements that I feel fire type has and maybe should have. I decided to give it these flames on its body, much like you see with different race cars in different movies, where flames make the car go faster. I decided to angle up the hooves to make it feel like it's always at full speed, like the fur on those hooves is just flying off. Even giving it this tail, which doesn't mimic a bull, but mimics the racing flames that shoot out from the back of exhaust pipes. And I really like the way it turned out. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, maybe you're like me and fire types are really hard for you to get behind, but for me as a fire type hater, I think I designed something that I really like, especially for a Pokemon that I often didn't know what I wanted to do with. It was a design that I knew what I needed to go for, where I needed to be, what areas I needed to hit, but ultimately never knew quite how to do it. And here, I feel like a lot of those areas are hit, and I feel like it's something that, whether you like it or not, I'm really happy with. It feels a little bit like Paldean Tauros, but I think I'm okay with that. I think it has enough differences to set it apart, and enough similarities for me to say, yeah, maybe it has some connection to that Pokemon. And with well over 1,000 Pokemon at this point, and more constantly rolling out, It seems like it's very difficult to come across something and say, it's gotta be 100% original and not look like it could bear any passing resemblance to any other Pokemon. So I went in, designed something I was happy with, threw caution to the wind, and ultimately, I really like where we ended up on this. I feel like taking those chances worked in my favor here. Let me know down in the comments which of these starters' final forms was your favorite. I'd love to hear about it, and let me know why. What it is that allows these Pokemon and their typings to really draw you in. I'm always surprised that you guys tend to like ones that maybe I didn't. So here we have Blazool. Its name is a play on Fuel, Blaze, and Bull. It is a Fire Dark type, and I could go on explaining why I think that works, but I mean, look at the thing. If you want to learn more about Kostawes and this region that we've been building, you can check it out in my playlists. You can also become a Patreon supporter over at the Patreon, down in the description, where you'll get high-res images of Pokemon like these, as well as others from previous videos. You can also find me at Ko-fi, where you can purchase designs like these, and ones featured in other videos, and some not featured in videos for yourself. I've recently started trying to upload more trainers there as well. You can also become a YouTube member for just $3 a month. That gets you exclusive access to some videos, early access to most videos, as well as your name in our giveaway that we do every month. And as usual, don't forget to join our Discord, which will be linked down below as well. Our Discord is very quickly growing, and join in the conversation. Who are your favorite starters, and what does your team look like in Kostawes so far? But with all that said, it sounds like you know where to find me, and I'll catch you in the next one.
What? Thesterninator fellow gamers? I want to give a big shout out to our supporters and subscribers Sky, Yu Ashikaki, Lexford, Drake Null, Jeremy Sunday, Cam Norshooter, Justin Greenier, Serencinos, Daniel, Kalen Cat, Soren Frost, Sticks, in Spanish, Dan Bush, and a big McThankies from McStankies to our YouTube members Sigil Sealed, Rejuno, Zed Ravenmore, Some Misters, Arctic Rose Creations, Kalen Cat, Crimble McSwizzle. See you later, haters.